Let's bring in NBC News senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell in Washington. So, Kelly, let's talk about what's next. Later this morning, President Biden will hold a virtual summit with fellow NATO heads. What's the goal here?
Well, this is a significant development because this will bring together the leaders of the 30 member nations. And this has both a practical and a symbolic importance because after we've just been listening to all that compelling reporting coming from Ukraine, here is an opportunity for the leaders of the defensive organization of NATO to send a message to Vladimir Putin that they are standing together. They are prepared to defend the NATO nations. And that, of course, includes many in the area that will flank Ukraine and Russia, and also looking at how can they help the people of Ukraine. So President Biden will be a part of this conversation with NATO leaders, and this is an emergency summit, if you will, bringing them together virtually. And it's critical that if wars can often be sloppy, they can be unpredictable, they can go in places that people don't intend. We've heard that in some of the reporting already. And there are great concerns about could Vladimir Putin's ambitions go beyond Ukraine? And that would mean potentially into a NATO country. And that changes the dynamic dramatically. Now, we're not saying that that's what's going to happen, but that's a grave concern for NATO members who would have a defensive position. And so we're seeing U.S. military and other NATO countries beefing up their military in the European areas that are along the border here. And we heard from Antony Blinken talking about the concerns that NATO countries have about a common defense. Here's what he had to say.
Well, first, Lester, when it comes to threatening NATO countries, we have something very powerful called Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all. Russia knows that, and that's exactly why, among other things, one of our responses has been to shore up NATO's defenses, to put more forces, to put more equipment on its eastern flank, the countries closest to Russia, to deter any aggression that Russia might be contemplating against NATO countries.
So this will be about military support to beef up the NATO countries, but also discussions of support to help Ukraine and likely some support for humanitarian needs and perhaps even discussion of what would happen to refugees as we're seeing Ukrainians being displaced. So we expect some of that to be part of that meeting today. Joe?
So, Kelly, the White House released these staggering sanctions yesterday. So far, nothing has deterred Putin. Talk about these latest sanctions. What does the White House hope they'll accomplish?
Well, this is about punishing Putin and punishing the Russian economy. And by doing that, by attacking Russian banks and prominent Russian figures, oligarchs, elites, and making it harder for them to do business. And some of these new financial sanctions would stop them from doing business in a number of currencies, the dollar, the yen, the euro, doing those sorts of things. Also, limiting access for imports of things like semiconductors, things they would need for their own technology. All of that is intended to punish by strangling the Russian economy, crippling their ability to function economically. These are stepped up sanctions, maybe not as far as they could ultimately go. For example, they didn't sanction Putin personally, although that might be more symbolic than effective. And they didn't go after what's known as the SWIFT system, which is a communication system in the financial markets. But the president says these are the strongest sanctions ever done and that they could be very effective in trying to deter Putin now that he's taken this action and to cause suffering in Russia, which could compel Putin to pull back. That's the hope.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.